30 degrees below zero, plasma frozen solid, morphine turned to ice. And in the middle of the deadliest battle of the Korean War, two Navy medics risked everything to save not just Americans, but their enemies too. It's the bitter dawn of November 27th, 1950, the Chosin Reservoir. The thermometer reads minus 38 degrees Fahrenheit, so cold that plasma freezes solid in its bottles. Morphine turns to slush in syringes, and steel becomes so brittle it shatters like glass. A Marine corpsman stumbles through knee-deep snow, each step a monumental effort against the howling Siberian wind. His olive-drab uniform is caked with ice, and frost covers every exposed inch of his face. Robert "Doc" Martinez clutches his medical bag tight against his chest, the leather frozen stiff but protecting the precious supplies inside from the killing cold. Through the swirling snow and howling wind, he spots the skeletal remains of a bombed-out Buddhist temple. Its ancient wooden beams blackened by artillery fire but still standing defiantly against the elements. He pushes through the heavy wooden doors, ice crystals falling from the hinges. Inside, huddled around a small fire made from broken prayer benches, is another figure in Marine fatigues. The man looks up, his face gone from days without proper food or sleep. Name's Williams, Hospital Corpsman, 2nd Class Tommy Williams, 1st Marine Division. Martinez. Doc Martinez, same outfit. The two medics nod to each other, their words creating small clouds of vapor that instantly freeze and fall to the stone floor like snow. Williams pokes at the meager fire with a piece of broken wood, the flames barely providing enough warmth to keep their medical supplies from freezing completely solid. The relative silence of the temple is suddenly shattered as desperate voices echo across the frozen landscape, carried on the bitter wind. Corpsmen! Corpsmen up! We got Marines down! Without hesitation, both men grab their frozen medical bags and rush toward the ancient wooden doors. Outside, the Chinese People's Volunteer Army has launched a massive surprise attack under cover of the blizzard. The Marines of the 1st Division are completely surrounded, outnumbered 8-1 by an enemy that knows these mountains like their own backyard. The sound of gunfire crackles across the frozen wasteland, punctuated by the whistle of incoming mortars and the screams of wounded men calling for their mothers in the bitter cold. He adjusts his frozen Red Cross armband and checks that the symbol on his helmet is clearly visible. In this frozen hell, it might be the only thing standing between him and a sniper's bullet. Protected only by his Red Cross armband and his sacred oath to save lives, he ventures into the deadly crossfire. Martinez braves the frozen battlefield. Thinking quickly, he spots an old wooden cart near the temple entrance, probably used by the monks to carry supplies. The wood is so cold it burns his hands even through his thick gloves. The wheels creak in protest against the frozen ground, leaving deep tracks in the snow as he pulls it across the open field toward the sound of gunfire. 300 yards away, hidden behind a snow-covered boulder, a Chinese sniper tracks Martinez's movement through the scope of his Soviet-made rifle. Crosshairs center perfectly on Martinez's chest. His finger tightens on the trigger, taking up the slack. One more ounce of pressure and the American medic will drop dead in the snow. But through his scope, he notices the Red Cross clearly visible on Martinez's helmet and armband. Even in this bitter war, some things remain sacred. Slowly, the sniper lowers his rifle and watches the medic continue his mission of mercy. "Medic, over here! We got a man down!" Martinez reaches a cluster of Marines pinned down behind fallen logs, their rifles steaming in the cold air. A young private, barely 19 years old, lies motionless in the snow, dark blood creating an expanding stain beneath his torn jacket. Together with 2 other Marines, they carefully lift the wounded soldier onto the makeshift cart. Every movement is agony for the injured Marine, but Martinez knows moving him is the only chance he has. Martinez grabs the cart handles and begins the treacherous journey back to the temple, pushing through snowdrifts that reach his knees, ducking and weaving through the storm of bullets that whistle overhead. Finally, he reaches the relative safety of the temple walls, his lungs burning from the frigid air and exertion. Territory changes hands repeatedly throughout the endless day. Chinese forces advance, then Marines counterattack, then the Chinese push forward again. It's a deadly game of frozen chess played with human lives. 2 medics keep venturing out into this hellish landscape, risking their own lives in the 40 below cold to save more injured Marines. Each trip becomes more dangerous as both sides become more desperate. With evening approaching and the pale winter sun disappearing behind the mountains, Martinez struggles through the temple door, carrying another wounded soldier. But this time, something is different. The temple falls into stunned, uncomfortable silence. Everyone stops what they're doing and stares at Martinez and his patient, because for the first time, the wounded man isn't an American. It's a Chinese soldier, probably no older than 20, his quilted winter uniform torn and bloodied from shrapnel wounds. His face is pale from blood loss and frostbite, but his eyes still hold a flicker of life. Martinez brings the Chinese soldier to an empty space near the fire and begins administering aid, completely ignoring the hostile stares and angry murmurs from some of the wounded Marines. "What the hell, Doc? That's the enemy. He was trying to kill us an hour ago." Martinez continues working, checking the soldier's pulse, examining his wounds, preparing bandages with hands that shake from both cold and the weight of his decision. Williams watches the scene unfold, knowing that this moment will define everything that happens next. After a long pause, Williams silently approaches and kneels down to help tend to the Chinese soldier. Inside the temple, the work continues around the clock until late that evening when the door creaks open on its frozen hinges. Standing there, silhouetted against the white landscape, is a Chinese officer. His rifle is raised and ready to fire. Nobody in the temple moves. Even the wounded hold their breath. The officer's eyes sweep the interior, taking in American and Chinese soldiers lying side by side, being treated by exhausted American medics. He notices his own countrymen being bandaged near the Buddha statue. Slowly, almost ceremoniously, he lowers his weapon. He nods to the two medics and backs out of the temple without saying a word. Williams begins collecting all the weapons in the temple. "Listen up, everybody," Williams announces. "From now on, no weapons inside this temple. American, Chinese, doesn't matter. You want medical help? You leave your guns at the door." He posts a crude sign near the entrance written in both English and what he hopes is understandable Chinese characters. With dawn breaking over the frozen mountains, painting the snow pink and gold, Captain James Morrison arrives at the temple. His face is grim. "Doc, we're pulling back. The Chinese have us surrounded 3 deep, and we can't hold this position much longer." Morrison looks around at the wounded men, both American and Chinese, lying on makeshift stretchers and blankets. "We can't evacuate the wounded. Not in this weather, not with that many enemy troops between us and the LZ. I'm sorry." Martinez and Williams exchange a long look. The decision takes less than 5 seconds. "We're staying, Captain." Williams nods in agreement. "These men are our responsibility. We took an oath." Captain Morrison studies both medics for a long moment, then quietly salutes them. "I'll make sure your families know you died heroes." But they have no intention of dying. Not here, not like this. By mid-morning, the Chinese retake the area, soon bringing their own wounded to the temple. Some are carried by comrades. Others drag themselves through the snow, following rumors of American medics who treat everyone equally. The temple grows so crowded that soldiers lie on the frozen stone floor. Williams and Martinez tear up their own blankets and clothing for warmth. Following triage that ignores nationality, those not expected to live are placed closest to the Buddha statue, where the fire offers dignity in their final hours. Night blurs in bandages, frozen blood, and desperate attempts to save lives with dwindling supplies. Every tool must be warmed by the fire before use. Just before dawn, a respectful knock sounds. A Chinese medical officer, Chen, stands with several men. His troops hesitate to give up their weapons, but Chen gestures firmly, and rifles are stacked beside the Americans. Inside, Chen is stunned. American medics treating Chinese soldiers, enemies sharing blankets. Through a young interpreter, he says, "Thank you. What do you need?" Martinez answers without hesitation. "Medical supplies. Morphine, bandages, antibiotics." Chen listens, then replies, "This place is different. I will bring supplies." He shakes their hands. Longer than protocol allows, healer to healer. By midday, Marines counterattack through the snow. As gunfire nears, something extraordinary happens. Soldiers on both sides hold fire when they see the red crosses. Word spreads, the temple is where the war stops, but the fighting closes in. Chinese artillery shakes the temple. Dust falls from beams. A mortar shell smashes through the roof and lands by the injured. It doesn't explode. Williams rushes forward, lifts the shell, and hurls it into the snow. Moments later, American machine gun fire rakes the temple walls. Martinez runs into the open, shouting at a Sherman tank, "Cease fire! Medical station!" Young tank commander, Lieutenant Patterson, demands evacuation. Williams steps beside Martinez. "Sir, with respect, we have 97 wounded inside, American and Chinese." The lieutenant bristles. "You're treating enemy soldiers?" "We're treating wounded soldiers," Williams replies. "This is neutral ground. Geneva Convention protects it. The war stops here." Patterson hesitates, then nods. "All right, Doc. But if this place is used militarily, I'll level it." "Understood," Williams says. "But it won't be." Over 4 days and 3 nights, Martinez and Williams treated 97 men, 62 Americans, 35 Chinese. Only 4 died, 2 from each side, a miraculous survival rate given the conditions. They created something unprecedented, a place where nationality didn't matter, where healing transcended ideology. Soldiers called it the Frozen Angels Station. The temple ruins still stand today as a monument to all who fought and died in the frozen mountains of North Korea. There's a bronze plaque in both English and Chinese dedicated to the medical personnel who served on both sides of the conflict. Both medics received the Silver Star for their actions during the Chosin Reservoir campaign, though they always insisted they were simply doing their job as medical professionals. When asked years later about treating enemy soldiers, Williams provided a simple explanation. Cold doesn't choose sides between American and Chinese. Neither does pain, neither does bleeding, neither should healing. The temple became known among veterans of both armies as the Frozen Angels Station, a place where, for just a few days in the midst of one of the most brutal battles of the Korean War, humanity triumphed over hatred. It stands as proof that even in the depths of war, even in the killing cold of a Korean winter, the human capacity for compassion can create miracles.